Red Bull just ran a secret test, and what Verstappen drove was so different, rival teams are already trying to figure out what went wrong. No announcement. No cameras. No official data. But leaks revealed something critical. A car missing key elements at the start of the season, suddenly running them now. And that should never happen in Formula 1. Because when a team like Red Bull adds basic aerodynamic parts mid-season, it means the original design was compromised. Right now, they are not chasing performance. They are trying to recover nearly half a second per lap. And inside this new RB22, there is one hidden change that could completely reset their season, or confirm that their biggest weakness was built into the car from day one. Subscribe now, because the real reason behind these upgrades is far more serious than anyone expected, and it changes everything. At first, it looked like a small change. Just a few extra elements on the front wing. Nothing dramatic. Nothing revolutionary. But in Formula 1, the smallest details often reveal the biggest problems. Because those elements were not new ideas. They were already being used by almost every team on the grid from the very first race. Red Bull was the exception. And now, suddenly, they are not. Which immediately raises a question that no one inside the paddock can ignore. Why was the RB22 running without them in the first place? Because you do not remove something so fundamental, unless something is forcing you to. And that something was hidden inside the car from the beginning. Weight. The RB22 was heavier than it should have been. Not by a small margin. By enough to cost serious lap time. Enough to completely change how the car behaves through corners. And when that happens, engineers are forced into difficult decisions. You cannot fix everything at once. So you start sacrificing performance to regain control. You simplify the aerodynamic surfaces. You remove load in certain areas. You try to stabilize the car, even if it means making it slower. That is exactly what Red Bull did. They stripped back complexity, just to make the car drivable. Now at Silverstone, they are reversing that decision. Bringing those elements back. Trying to recover the performance they had to give up. But this is where the risk appears. Because adding downforce is easy. Controlling it is not. If the underlying balance is still wrong. If the airflow is still unstable. Then those new elements do not fix the problem. They amplify it. And that is why Verstappen was the only driver on track that day. Not for convenience. For clarity. Because when a car behaves unpredictably, you need one voice. One driver who can feel every change. Every improvement, or every new issue. And Verstappen is that reference. Every lap he completed was answering one critical question. Is this car finally becoming predictable? Or is it still hiding something deeper? But here is where this block connects to something much bigger. Because what we saw on the front wing is only the surface. The visible part. The real transformation, the one that could change everything, is happening somewhere no camera could capture that day. And once you understand that hidden area, you start to realize why this situation is far more serious than just a slow start. There is one part of the RB22 that no one could truly see at Silverstone. Not the front wing. Not the bodywork. The floor. And this is where everything begins. In modern Formula 1, the floor is the car. It controls the airflow. It generates the majority of downforce. It defines whether the car feels stable or completely unpredictable. And right now, this is exactly where Red Bull has been struggling. Because the RB22 was built around an extreme idea. Ultra-tight packaging. Very narrow side pods. A design that pushes airflow to its limits. On paper, it promised efficiency. On track, it created instability. The airflow underneath the car is not consistent. One corner feels strong. The next, completely different. And that creates the worst possible scenario for a driver. Uncertainty. Because when a driver turns into a corner, there is no time to think. There is only instinct. And instinct depends on trust. If the car reacts differently each time, that trust disappears. And when that happens, even the best driver in the world cannot extract the maximum. They hesitate. They adjust. They lose time, without even realizing it. This is why the Silverstone test was not about speed. It was about answers. Every lap Verstappen completed was a direct conversation with the car. Is the rear stable? Is the balance consistent? Does the car respond the same way every single lap? And if the answer is no, then the problem is not just aerodynamic. It is structural. Because you can change wings. You can reduce weight. You can adjust surfaces. But if the floor concept itself is unstable, you are not fixing the car. You are chasing a problem that keeps moving. Now here is where things become even more critical. Because there is another issue, connected directly to this design. Cooling. The tighter the packaging, the harder it is to manage temperatures. And that is exactly what Red Bull has been dealing with. Heat building up, systems under pressure, performance being limited just to protect the car. And that creates a chain reaction. Less cooling means less efficiency. Less efficiency means less performance. Less performance means more pressure on every other part of the car. And suddenly, everything connects. An unstable floor, a sensitive aerodynamic balance, cooling limitations, weight compromises, all interacting at the same time. This is not one problem. It is a system under stress. And what Red Bull tested at Silverstone was not just an upgrade. It was an attempt to stabilize that entire system. But here is the uncomfortable truth. If the foundation of that system is wrong, then no upgrade will fully fix it. It will improve. It will help. But it will never unlock the full potential of the car. And that leads to a much deeper question. One that goes beyond Silverstone, beyond Miami, beyond this entire update package. Why did Red Bull choose this concept in the first place? Because once you understand that decision, you start to see that everything happening now was set in motion long before the RB22 ever reached the track. The answer goes back to a moment most people ignored. A moment that did not happen on track. It happened behind closed doors, months earlier, when Red Bull made a decision that, at the time, looked completely justified. They chose to keep developing the previous car longer than anyone else. They kept pushing, kept chasing performance, kept fighting for results instead of shifting focus early. And in Formula One, that decision is dangerous. Because development is not just about speed. It is about timing. While Red Bull was still extracting performance from the past, other teams had already committed to the future. They were designing earlier, testing concepts earlier, solving problems earlier. By the time Red Bull fully switched to the RB22, they had less time, less validation, less margin for error. And that is where everything starts to make sense. Because when a car is designed under time pressure, you do not always see the flaws immediately. They stay hidden until the car hits the track, until real conditions expose them. Corner after corner, lap after lap. That is exactly what happened. The RB22 was not a slow evolution. It was a compressed project. And when projects are compressed, problems stack up. Weight distribution issues, aerodynamic imbalance, cooling limitations, unpredictable behavior, all appearing at once. Not because of bad luck, because of how the car was born. And this is why Silverstone matters so much. Because what Red Bull tested there was not just a new package. It was an attempt to correct decisions made at the very foundation of the car. And that is one of the hardest things to do in Formula One. You can adjust surfaces. You can reduce weight. You can refine airflow. But changing the core concept during the season comes with consequences. Every fix creates a new compromise. Every improvement risks a new weakness. And Red Bull is now balancing all of it at the same time. But here is where the pressure becomes even more intense. Because they are not doing this in isolation. While they are trying to fix a flawed concept, other teams are moving forward without that burden. They are improving performance, not correcting mistakes. Which means Red Bull is fighting two battles. Fixing their own car, and chasing rivals who are already ahead. That is why everything now points to one moment. Miami. That is not just another race. That is the deadline. The moment where all these changes, all this urgency, all this hidden work, has to deliver. Because if it does, Red Bull comes back into the fight. But if it does not, then the reality becomes impossible to ignore. This is not just a difficult start. This is a limitation built into the car from the very beginning. And everything we saw at Silverstone was not the solution. It was the last attempt to prove that the concept can still be saved. And this is where everything reaches its breaking point. Because there is a limit, a point where development stops being progress and starts becoming damage control. Red Bull is getting dangerously close to that line. You can feel it in the way they are testing. You can see it in the urgency of the upgrades. You can hear it in the silence around that Silverstone session. This is no longer a team confidently building speed. This is a team searching for stability. And those are two completely different situations. Because when you are building speed, every upgrade adds performance. But when you are searching for stability, every upgrade is a risk. It might fix one problem, but create another one somewhere else. That is exactly the trap Red Bull is trying to avoid. Now think about what that means heading into Miami. All the data from Silverstone. All the feedback from Verstappen. All the hidden changes to the car. Compressed into one final package. One version of the RB22 that has to work. Not partially. Not temporarily. Completely. Because if it does, everything changes overnight. The car becomes predictable. The driver regains confidence. Lap time returns. And suddenly, Red Bull is back in the fight. But if it does not, if even one core issue remains, then the situation becomes very clear. This is not a car that needs more time. This is a car that has reached its limit. And that is the moment no team wants to face. Because once you accept that, you stop chasing the championship. You start managing the season. And for a team like Red Bull, that is not just a setback. It is a shift in identity. From dominance to recovery. From control to uncertainty. And that is why every team in the paddock is watching so closely. Not because they are afraid of what Red Bull might become, but because they want to see what happens next. If Red Bull solves this, they unlock a concept no one else has mastered. If they fail, they expose the limits of that concept for everyone. So Silverstone was never just a hidden test. It was a signal. A quiet warning that something deeper is happening. And Miami will not just show lap times. It will reveal the truth. Whether Verstappen's upgrades were the beginning of a comeback, or the final confirmation that the RB22 was compromised long before anyone realized it.